Sagittarius, an imminent farewell will change your destiny. Someone will leave very soon. Not every departure is a tragedy. Some goodbyes don't echo in words but in sudden stillness, an ache that stirs without warning, a pause in your spirit even when life on the surface seems untouched. You've felt this before, haven't you? A sudden silence in the middle of your laughter, a tear rising without a reason, a dream that lingers long after morning light. That's not anxiety. That's your soul whispering that something, someone, is quietly beginning to leave. And somehow, without explanation, you already know. You, Sagittarius, the seeker of meaning, the wanderer between heaven and earth. You were born with a compass that doesn't just guide you through space, but through time and energy. When someone close is about to cross a threshold, your soul picks it up like an ancient signal. This message is not to burden you, but to gently prepare you for what your heart already senses. A farewell is coming, but it won't be a loss. It will be a transformation. In this journey, we will walk together through that sacred passage. You'll see why you were chosen to feel it, how this goodbye will awaken your deepest light, and why love doesn't vanish. It simply shifts into a new shape only your spirit can recognize. If something stirs within you, if your breath just paused for a moment, don't rush past it. Like, share, subscribe, not out of habit but as a small ritual of readiness. You are not alone. And what's coming may change everything you thought you knew about endings. Gate 1. You feel the goodbye before it arrives, Sagittarius. There are moments in a Sagittarius soul's journey when the fire inside doesn't roar but flickers low, quiet, gentle, as if it's listening to something no one else hears. You've been told your gift is your courage, your truth, your restless spirit, but few understand the depth beneath that fire, the grief that smolders beneath your laughter, the goodbyes you sense before anyone even speaks. Sagittarius, you carry a radar within your chest, tuned not to logic but to the vibrations of souls passing near or far. Sometimes you don't know why you wake up with a lump in your throat, or why tears press behind your eyes on a morning that's otherwise calm. You shake it off, go for a walk, open your arms to the horizon, but still something pulls. It's not the wind. It's a silent goodbye that hasn't yet arrived in words, but has already begun to ripple through your world. Some goodbyes are loud and obvious. Others arrive as stillness in the middle of motion. You, Sagittarius, don't wait for the announcement. You feel the shift. Someone in your world, maybe a person, maybe a role, maybe even a version of yourself, is beginning to leave, and you, with all your instinct, know it. The strange dream. The sudden memory of someone you haven't thought of in years. The aching pause in your chest when everything should feel fine. You're not imagining it. Your soul is sensing the subtle unraveling of a bond before it breaks. And that sensitivity, no matter how inconvenient, is sacred. They call you the seeker, the truth teller, the philosopher. But what they don't always say is that you are also the one who sees the cracks forming in the foundation long before the building collapses. You know how to read energy. It's not superstition, it's not dramatics, it's resonance. And lately there's been a frequency moving through your world that you can't quite name, but it feels like loss. Not all loss is tragedy. Some is transition. Some is evolution. But no matter what form it takes, it stirs something primal in your fire. The need to understand, to honor, to prepare. Maybe someone close to you is shifting out of your orbit. Maybe they haven't said it yet, maybe even they don't know it, but your soul does. Or perhaps someone who once anchored your life, whether through love, family, or shared dreams, is quietly walking to the edge of a new path, one that doesn't include you the way it used to. You're not being abandoned, you're being released. And that can feel like being untethered, which for a Sagittarius, whose identity is built on movement, can paradoxically make you feel stuck. But listen closely. This is not punishment. This is preparation. In many spiritual traditions, there is a sacred acknowledgement that some souls sense the shift long before it happens. In Buddhism, it is said that karma completes its cycle gently when we are present enough to witness the parting. In Christian mysticism, the moment of departure is sometimes granted as a quiet knowing in advance to those spiritually attuned, to help soften the blow, to prepare the vessel. In astrology, Sagittarius rules the 9th house, the house of journeys, of wisdom, of spiritual departure and arrival. You, above all, understand the sacredness of thresholds. And this moment you're feeling is a threshold. A farewell is coming, not necessarily to destroy, but to reshape. You may feel an old ache stirring in your heart, And you might not know why. A specific person might come to mind again and again, even if you've tried to forget. Or perhaps the ache has no name, just a sensation that something is slipping, like sand through your fingers. You might even try to distract yourself. Throw yourself into plans, flights, spontaneous texts to people you haven't spoken to in months, but the feeling returns. Because the soul doesn't move on your schedule. It speaks when it's time, and right now it's whispering through every breath. Prepare. This isn't just about romantic loss or grief from death. Sometimes the person who is leaving isn't even aware they're halfway gone. Sometimes it's you who has already begun to say goodbye, even if you're still showing up in the same conversations, the same room, the same dynamic. There are goodbyes that happen long before the physical parting. There are departures that take place in the heart. And you, Sagittarius, know this language even if you wish you didn't. You've stood at enough edges in your life to know when something is slipping past the point of return. But here's where your gift transforms from pain to power. Unlike others who might deny, resist, or collapse under the weight of what's coming, you have the capacity to hold that fire steady, to breathe into the storm, to walk with your head high even as tears burn behind your eyes. You don't need to fight the goodbye. You only need to witness it. Because in your witnessing there is grace, there is truth, there is release. I once met a Sagittarius woman in her early 50s, a painter who had recently lost her sister. The death came unexpectedly, but she told me something I'll never forget. I knew. I didn't know what I knew, but I knew. I painted a doorway 3 weeks before. A doorway opening to nothing but light. And when the call came, I didn't feel shocked. I felt held. Like my soul had already said goodbye. That's the gift you hold, Sagittarius. The ability to meet endings with reverence, not resistance. The courage to stand at the threshold and say, I see you. I will not hold you back. I will let you go in light. Even if the goodbye is not about physical loss, but about the end of an era, a dream, a dynamic, you can hold it. You who have crossed oceans inside your own spirit, who have let go of identities that no longer fit, who have danced in the ashes of old selves and still kept walking, you can hold this too. Your intuition isn't a liability. It is divine intelligence. It is soul memory. And if you are feeling the tremble of goodbye right now, trust it. Trust it not as fear, but as the soft hand of destiny preparing you to carry light into a new form. You are not being punished. You are being called. Called to witness the sacred unraveling before the renewal. Called to anchor your fire. Not to burn in rage or run in fear, but to warm the passage. You are not losing everything. You are shedding a layer so that something deeper may come through. And even though it hurts, you already know this is true. You've known since the first moment your breath caught for no reason. Since the dream that didn't make sense. Since the moment your favorite song suddenly felt like a goodbye. So what do you do with this knowing? You don't chase it. You don't bury it. You hold it. You speak to it. You create space for it. Maybe that means lighting a candle, journaling the goodbye you never got to say, or simply sitting still and allowing yourself to grieve what's leaving before it's truly gone. That's not morbid. That's holy. That's honest. That's what it means to be a sacred traveler, Sagittarius. Not just to journey across landscapes, but through emotional frontiers as well. This is one of them. A farewell is arriving. And even if no one else sees it yet, you do. And that, dear Sagittarius, is not a curse. It's your blessing. You are not just a fire sign. You are the torchbearer for transitions. You are the one who holds space when others run. You are the one who turns pain into purpose. And if you're still reading this, still listening, then you've already begun the process. You are already walking that bridge between what was and what's to come. Write this somewhere if it resonates. I feel the goodbye and I choose to honor it, not fear it. Let this be your first step into a greater clarity, because what's leaving your life is not doing so to break you. It is doing so to bless you with what you were born to become. Stay with me. In the next gate, you'll see that this loss is not the end, but the sacred beginning of a truth only your soul could carry. Gate 2. You weren't abandoned, Sagittarius. You were chosen to keep the gate open. There are moments in your journey, Sagittarius, when you've stared into the open sky, looking for answers in the stars, wondering why someone had to leave while you were the one left standing in the echo of their absence. You've held questions not with resentment but with longing. You've walked through days that looked bright on the outside but felt dim within, because something in you was quietly unraveling. You wondered if you were being punished, if your openness, your boundless truth-seeking heart, was somehow the reason for the silence, for the loss, for the goodbye that never arrived in the way you needed it to. But I am here to tell you, not as a fortune teller, not as a voice of reason, but as someone who deeply feels what your soul has always known. You were not left behind because you were unworthy. You were chosen because your heart could hold what others would collapse under. Sagittarius, the universe didn't abandon you. It anointed you with a role most souls are too weary to accept. You were asked to remain not because your love was less but because it was more. You carry the flame. You hold the gate. And I know that doesn't sound fair. It doesn't feel like a gift when your nights are spent remembering someone's laugh, someone's gaze, someone's presence so vividly that you swear they must still be breathing somewhere just beyond the veil. But you weren't meant to understand the parting as punishment. You were meant to realize that what you're feeling is not grief alone. It's guardianship. The sacred, invisible work of holding a soul through transition. Not with your hands, but with your being. When a loved one begins to move beyond this realm, whether through death, departure, or emotional withdrawal, most people don't notice it until it's gone. But not you. You feel it the way the wind feels an oncoming storm, even before the clouds appear. You start to dream strange dreams. You smell a scent that belongs to no one around you. You wake with a heaviness in your chest, as if someone called your name from a faraway shore. These are not coincidences, Sagittarius. This is soul speak. This is how the ones who are leaving begin to whisper to the ones who are strong enough to stay. And you are one of those chosen few. You've likely been that person who senses change before it's named. Perhaps you were the one sitting at a hospital bed, your hand resting over someone's, and without words you knew it was time. Or maybe you were simply walking one afternoon, and the wind changed and you knew. Someone you love was about to leave, even if their body was still there. You tried to explain it to others but no one understood. They brushed it off. They didn't feel it like you did. And so you stayed silent. But deep inside, you were already making peace with the goodbye that hadn't yet happened. That kind of foresight is an imagination. It's a spiritual appointment. And not everyone can handle it. The reason you feel this so profoundly, Sagittarius, is because your soul is ancient. You've carried lifetimes of wisdom and fire and faith, and this lifetime has gifted you something even more potent. The ability to hold both joy and sorrow without running away. You're not just a fire sign. You are sacred fire. You burn through illusions. You stand in places where others have turned their backs. When a departure looms, whether it's a physical passing or a metaphysical transformation, you're the one who's still standing at the gate, waiting to hold the light steady, so no one walks into the dark alone. That's not weakness. That's sacred strength. In Buddhist tradition, there's a quiet teaching rarely spoken aloud. The strongest among us are not the ones who walk ahead, but those who remain at the threshold when the veil between worlds begins to thin. They don't speak loudly. They don't declare themselves spiritual warriors. They simply stay. They hold the space. They offer a presence that is so still, so calm, so loving, that the departing soul can leave without fear. That's you, Sagittarius. That's what you've become, without even realizing it. A bridge. A keeper of sacred thresholds. And the universe doesn't choose just anyone for this task. It chooses those who have already walked through many departures, those who have already mourned versions of themselves and still found the courage to rise. You may not have realized how rare your gift is. How many times have you been the one to comfort others, to whisper words of courage when your own voice was trembling? How often have you carried someone's sorrow even as your heart cracked silently inside your chest? That wasn't codependency. That wasn't self-sacrifice in the negative sense. That was your soul remembering its vow. I will stay. I will hold. I will keep the gate open. The Sagittarius who once ran free under the sky has matured into something more grounded, more cosmic. You are not just a wanderer anymore. You are a guidepost. I remember once speaking to a woman, a Sagittarius born in December, whose father passed away during a time she was on the other side of the world. She wasn't able to say goodbye in the traditional way. No funeral, no last hug. But months before he passed, she had a vivid dream. He was smiling, sitting beneath a tree, his hands folded peacefully in his lap. In the dream, he didn't speak. but she felt more comforted than she ever had. The night he passed, that same dream returned. She woke up with tears in her eyes but no fear, only peace, and somehow her heart understood. She hadn't missed his farewell. She had been chosen to receive it in the only way her soul could, through vibration, through energy, through a love that no longer needed form. That's how it happens for souls like yours, Sagittarius. You don't always get the farewell scene wrapped in ceremony. You don't always get closure wrapped in clarity. But you get something more profound. A spiritual passage. A knowing. A signal. A truth that shakes your entire inner being without explanation. And what you do with that signal matters. Some turn away from it. Some numb themselves. But you, if you are truly walking in your Sagittarius light, you allow it to transform you. You don't close the door. You don't harden. You let the love become your guidepost. You let the goodbye become your fuel. You were not forgotten. You were entrusted. When someone close to you starts to withdraw, you may feel it before they say a word. You might notice they call less, or speak with a softer voice, or simply seem less tethered to this world. And though you can't prove anything, you feel it like a quiet earthquake in your soul. And here's the truth. You don't need proof to validate your grief. You don't need anyone to confirm what you feel. The very fact that you feel it is enough. It means your connection is real. It means your presence matters. It means you were chosen to stand where spirit meets earth, and not flinch. So often, Sagittarius, you've been the one to travel for others, to go the distance, to show up even when no one asks you to. But this time, this moment of invisible parting, it's asking something different from you. It's asking you to remain, to sit, to feel, not to chase, not to fix, but to be the calm flame in the room where a soul is making its way to another plane. And even if they're still breathing beside you, even if they haven't said goodbye yet, their soul already knows, and so does yours. What a holy assignment. What a profound act of love, to hold someone through a goodbye they haven't even spoken aloud. You're not broken because you feel this so deeply. You are awake. And if today you're feeling a little more tired than usual, if the sky looks different and the wind sounds like it's carrying messages, know this. You are in a transition not just of grief but of purpose. You are stepping into a role that transcends emotion. You are becoming someone who doesn't just survive the loss. You carry the legacy. Sagittarius, if this speaks to something hidden inside you, take a quiet moment to reflect. Not with noise, not with performance, but with sincerity. Write down one name, someone you feel is slipping away or already has. Place your hand on your heart and whisper, I will hold your light, because that is what you were chosen for. You are not the one who was left. You are the one who remained, because your soul was strong enough to bear the weight of both the love and the letting go. This isn't the end of your story, nor theirs. It is a beginning written in invisible ink. A passage only revealed to those whose eyes know how to see beyond form, whose hearts know how to love through absence. And that, Sagittarius, is who you are. You were never just here to explore the world. You were always meant to guide souls through the places where maps no longer exist. Gate 3 love doesn't leave, Sagittarius, just changes form. Sagittarius, what if I told you that the love you think you've lost is still with you? Not in the same way, not in the same form, but in a language only your awakened soul can understand? You, who are often seen as the wanderer, the one who seeks horizons beyond the visible, have a secret that few ever discover. You are also the keeper of invisible threads. When someone leaves, whether through passing, silence, or spiritual drift, you do not just grieve them in the ordinary way. You feel their presence reconfigure. You sense their soul stretching across time, folding into memory, into breath, into moments that arrive unannounced, cloaked in symbols only your heart can translate. That is not coincidence, Sagittarius. That is love finding its way back to you in the only form it now knows how. They didn't leave you. They simply shifted. And that kind of love that does not depend on presence, touch, or voice, is the rarest, the most sacred, and the most powerful kind. You are not just the survivor of a farewell. You are the keeper of an eternal bond that has outgrown flesh and now travels by frequency, by memory, by meaning. When you hear that song while driving at dusk and tears suddenly well in your eyes, even though you hadn't thought of them in weeks, that's not nostalgia. That's them. When you whisper something aloud in an empty room and feel the stillness change, that's not your imagination. That's them, arriving as gently as ever. Because real love, deep soul-level love, refuses to obey the rules of time. Your role, dear Sagittarius, is not to chase closure. Your role is to keep the space open for love's new language to be written through you. The pain you feel is not punishment. It's a signal that your soul is being asked to expand beyond what you thought love looked like. No more holding on to what was. Instead, you are now learning to hold what is invisible but eternal. The scent in the wind that brings a memory. The way the light hits a photo and you suddenly feel warm, as if they're standing right behind you. The strange sensation that you are being hugged by something unseen when you are breaking down at midnight. These are not hallucinations. These are the forms love takes when it refuses to die. I once sat with a Sagittarius man in his 70s. He had lost his wife decades earlier. He never remarried, never even dated seriously again. But he told me, I still see her. Not as a ghost. I see her in the way the sunrise looks when I step out onto the porch. I hear her in the way my granddaughter says my name. And sometimes when I laugh at something and feel an echo of that joy multiply in my chest, I swear it's her laughing too. You see, he didn't spend his life trying to replace what he lost. He allowed the love to evolve. And that, Sagittarius, is what you're being called to do now. Love does not die when a heart stops beating. It does not vanish when a body is buried, or when a relationship ends in silence. Love becomes light. It becomes story. It becomes gesture. It becomes the part of you that was carved by their presence and still breathes because of it. And you, your fire, your voice, your rituals, your travels, your remembering. You are how that love keeps walking in this world. You do not need to memorialize it with constant sadness. You need only live as the person that love shaped you to be. Sometimes it will surprise you how loud their presence still is. A sudden memory you hadn't recalled in years arrives like lightning and knocks the wind out of you. Or a dream, vivid, sensorial, leaves you crying into your pillow without knowing why. Sagittarius, those dreams are visits. Those memories are echoes the soul sends to let you know, I haven't gone. I've only changed shape. But I'm still here because you still hold me. You are my altar now. You are my voice. You are the place where I get to exist again and again. There is a concept in Buddhist tradition known as continuation. It teaches that when someone departs, they are not gone. They continue in the hearts, the gestures, the lives of those they touched. They continue through intention, through compassion, through practice. In Christianity, this is expressed through the notion that the saints are not simply those who lived righteously, but those whose presence still guides the living. The holy ones are not gone. They are surrounding us, interceding, whispering wisdom when we are quiet enough to hear it. Sagittarius, you are one of the few who has ears for this whisper. You are the one who, even in a room full of laughter, can suddenly go quiet and hear the presence of someone who no longer speaks in sound. You are the one who walks into a place they once stood and instantly feels the temperature shift, the atmosphere bend ever so slightly. That's not grief. That's connection. Your awareness is not a curse. It's a gift. And the more you open to it, the more you will come to realize. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You have been watched, guided, protected by a soul who loves you from beyond the veil. And the tears that come, they are not evidence of weakness. They are proof of bond. They are how your soul clears space for that which cannot be touched by hands, but still touches everything. You were never meant to move on. That idea is a myth, built for those who fear the unknown. You were meant to move forward with them, not without. They are no longer by your side, Sagittarius. They are inside you, written into every brave thing you've done since they left. You said goodbye, but their love never did. You turned a page, but they became the ink. You are the carrier of their goodness, the protector of their memory, the translator of their message. What you write, what you say, what you teach, what you forgive, these are the ways they continue. And that is why your journey did not end with their absence. It began anew. You were reborn into a version of yourself capable of bearing the torch of love without needing form to justify it. You were given the sacred work of becoming more than just someone who loved. You became the embodiment of that love's evolution. So if today you feel them near, don't doubt it. If today you feel a sense of guidance that defies logic, don't ignore it. If today you laugh for the first time in weeks and suddenly feel tears rise not from sadness, but from release, know that is their way of saying, I am still here. Not beside you, not above you, but within you. You carry me. You are my echo. You are my flame. Sagittarius, you are not here to suffer this love. You are here to transform with it. Let it change you. Let it deepen your presence. Let it remind you that love was never meant to end at goodbye. It was meant to begin anew in the sacred stillness after. You are not the ashes. You are the phoenix. And what rises from loss is not just survival. It is spiritual flight. Gate for the farewell that awakened your sacred mission. Sagittarius, the truth you've been slowly approaching, step by step, dream by dream, breath by breath, is this. Their farewell wasn't just an ending. It was an awakening. You didn't just lose someone. You crossed a threshold. Something in you was cracked open in a way that can never be reversed. And within that quiet rupture, within the echo of what you once held and now can no longer touch, your soul began to whisper the truth of your deeper purpose. You see, Sagittarius, not everyone is chosen for this kind of transformation. Not everyone's destiny is shifted by the departure of another. But you, because of who you are, because of how your soul listens and burns and loves, have been called. And the calling doesn't come loudly, comes like a flicker, a change in how you see the world. Suddenly, things that once mattered no longer hold your attention. The noise, the distractions, the rush to prove, none of it fits anymore. You begin to crave depth, stillness, truth. You feel drawn to certain places you can't explain. You meet strangers who speak words your heart has been waiting lifetimes to hear. You start having dreams that feel like blueprints. Symbols repeat. Animals appear. A face from your past says one thing that echoes for weeks. This is not coincidence. This is initiation. This is what happens when the universe takes a part of your outer world and folds it back into your inner one. Their departure was not to punish or test you. It was to awaken the exact vibration you were meant to carry forward. You are not here to replace what was lost. You are here to live in such a way that their light becomes part of your movement, your work, your healing of others. Because when a soul leaves you with love still unspoken, it becomes your work to speak it. When someone goes before their words were finished, it is your mission to embody them. Sagittarius, you've always been a traveler, not just of lands but of truths. You were never content with surface answers. You were the child who looked at the stars and felt something inside you ache with wonder. You are the adult who still feels that ache, but now you know it has a name: longing. Not just for love, not just for understanding, but for meaning. You've always known your life was meant for something more. And now, through this sacred farewell, that more is beginning to reveal itself. Perhaps you're finding yourself drawn to help others in ways you never expected. Maybe you've suddenly become the one people call in moments of quiet grief. Maybe you're speaking more softly, listening more deeply. Maybe you're feeling tired, but it's not fatigue. It's spiritual integration. Your soul is learning how to carry this new light. You're no longer living only for yourself. You are now walking the path of a soul who holds the essence of another within. That is holy work. That is the life of a bridge between what was and what is still becoming. I once spoke to a Sagittarius woman who lost her younger brother unexpectedly. For a long time she wandered through her days numb, unable to speak of him. But then one night she dreamed he was standing at the edge of a mountain, looking out at a wide sky. He turned and said, "Don't follow me. Just build where you are." She woke up sobbing. But from that day forward, she began planting trees in his memory, volunteering with youth, mentoring others who had lost siblings. She stopped asking why he left and began asking what she was meant to do with the time she still had. That shift changed her forever. Not because the pain disappeared, but because it found direction. That's what's happening to you now, Sagittarius. You are beginning to understand that your grief is not just sorrow. It's sacred fuel. It is awakening a part of you that doesn't just want to survive. It wants to serve, to create, to embody love in a way that lasts beyond the limits of a single relationship or life. You are becoming a legacy, not of the past but of possibility. When people meet you now, they don't just see a person, they feel a presence. Something luminous, something unspoken. They don't know that it's the echo of someone you loved, but they feel it. They are healed by it. And in that, your soul is fulfilling its contract. You may notice you're no longer interested in proving yourself. You no longer feel the need to be understood by everyone. You are content being misunderstood if it means you can be true. You are drawn to simplicity, to small sacred moments, the sound of water, the silence of dawn, the eyes of someone who's just about to cry. This is the shift, the deepening. This is your soul becoming who it was always meant to be. Now finally free of the distractions that once delayed it. And yes, it's lonely sometimes. The ones who walk this path often do so without a guide. But the truth is, your guide is already with you. Not in front of you, not beside you, but inside you. Their wisdom has fused with yours. Their tenderness now speaks through your gestures. Their love becomes your new instinct. When you reach out to comfort someone, you are not doing it alone. They are there in that hand, in that smile, in that silence. You are never alone. The farewell awakened you, Sagittarius. And now it is your task to awaken others. Not through speeches, not through shouting, but through your presence, your honesty, your ability to sit with what others fear to feel. You are the embodiment of living after loss. And because of that, you carry a light that no one else can fake. The light of someone who didn't give up. The light of someone who still believes in love, even when it no longer wears the same face. There is no map for where you're going now, but there is a compass. It lives in your chest. It beats quietly every time you do something real. Every time you create instead of crumble. Every time you give without needing applause. Every time you listen without interrupting. Every time you forgive not because it was earned, but because your heart is big enough to let go. That's your compass. That's the new rhythm you follow now. So if today you are still weeping, let the tears fall. But know this, they are watering something. Something beautiful. Something essential. Something only your soul can bring into this world. And if today you feel numb, don't judge yourself. Your soul is resting before the next call. Because the mission is not over. In fact, it's only just begun. Write one thing down. One vow to your future self. Something small, something honest. I will love again. Or I will live fully even with this scar. Or simply, I will walk with grace carrying what they gave me. And let that be enough. Because it is. Let me know when you're ready for the conclusion, where we will gather everything you've experienced in this journey and gently close with power, peace, and purpose. Conclusion. This is not the end. It's the gate to a braver beginning. Dear Sagittarius, if you've walked with me this far, if your heart has trembled and quieted and stirred again as these truths unfolded, then know this. You are no longer the same soul who first pressed play on this message. Something sacred has shifted. Not because you forced yourself to change, but because a truth you always carried finally had space to rise. What felt like a goodbye was never meant to be a closing chapter. It was a summons. A sacred invitation for your soul to grow in a direction it had been resisting. Not out of fear, but out of love for what was. And now, in this moment, you are being asked to step through a new threshold. Not by forgetting the one who left. Not by pretending you were never hurt. But by carrying them forward. In your walk, in your words, in the way you choose tenderness over noise, silence over spectacle, truth over performance. Sagittarius, your heart is expanding in ways the mind may never fully understand. This isn't just emotional healing. This is purpose. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You've been chosen already, by the divine, by love, by the one whose goodbye awakened the light in you that will now lead others home. You have cried, yes, but not as someone who broke. You cried as someone who was being reshaped, made deeper, more capable of giving love in its purest, unshakable form. There is a future waiting for you now that didn't exist before. A new timeline opening, one of softness and strength, of fierce compassion and soul-led action. So let us close this message not in sorrow but in sacred agreement. Whisper this softly to yourself. I carry the light of the one I loved, and with it, I will illuminate paths not just for me, but for all who still wander in the dark. This is not the end. This is the return to your soul. This is where you begin again, with purpose, with grace, with the kind of fire only a Sagittarius can hold. If this message spoke to something ancient in your spirit, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe to the Zodiac Wisdom channel. Not to follow me, but to keep following your light, your path, your quiet destiny.